April 14, 1912. A calm, moonless night in the North Atlantic. The ocean was still, the air was cold, and aboard the largest, most luxurious ship ever built, over 2,200 people slept peacefully, completely unaware that in just a few hours, more than half of them would be dead. This is the story of the RMS Titanic. Not just how it sank, but how a chain of decisions, arrogance, and missed warnings turned a dream into one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. Chapter 1: The Ship of Dreams. At the start of the 20th century, the world was changing fast. Industrial power was rising, and nations competed not just in war, but in prestige. And nothing symbolized prestige more than ocean liners. The British company White Star Line set out to build something unprecedented: 3 massive ships, Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. But Titanic was special. At over 269 meters long, it was the largest moving object ever built by humans at the time. It had grand staircases with glass domes, first-class suites rivaling luxury hotels, swimming pools, gyms, and fine dining halls. It wasn't just a ship, it was a floating city. And most importantly, it was believed to be unsinkable. Why? Because of its revolutionary design, 16 watertight compartments. Even if several were flooded, the ship was supposed to stay afloat. That belief would prove fatal. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, England. On board were over 2,200 people. But Titanic wasn't just one story, it was many. In first class, millionaires like John Jacob Astor, industrialists, celebrities, elites. They dined under chandeliers and lived in unmatched luxury. In second class, teachers, professionals, tourists, comfortable but modest. And in third class, immigrants chasing a new life in America, families from Ireland, Scandinavia, and beyond. They carried dreams. Dreams of opportunity. Dreams that would never be realized. As Titanic crossed the Atlantic, wireless operators received multiple ice warnings from nearby ships. Messages like, "Iceberg ahead," "Large ice fields in your path." At least 6 warnings came in. But here's the problem. Not all of them reached the bridge. Why? Because the wireless system was primarily used for passenger messages. Some warnings were delayed, some ignored, and some never taken seriously. Meanwhile, Captain Edward Smith, on his final voyage before retirement, allowed the ship to maintain near full speed, about 22 knots, too fast for icy waters. Because Titanic wasn't just a ship, it was a statement, and slowing down would mean admitting vulnerability. Lookouts spotted something ahead, an iceberg, straight in their path. They rang the bell 3 times. "Iceberg, right ahead!" The bridge reacted immediately. Hard to port, left, engines reversed, but it was too late. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side of the ship. It didn't look dramatic, no explosion, no massive crash, just a long, tearing sound. But below the surface, something catastrophic had happened. The iceberg had opened multiple compartments, not 1, not 2, but 6. And Titanic was only designed to survive 4 flooded compartments. The unsinkable ship was already doomed. Ship designer Thomas Andrews quickly assessed the damage. His conclusion was chilling. Titanic would sink within 2 hours. At first, passengers didn't believe it. Why would they? The ship was massive, stable, silent. There was no panic, yet. Crew members began preparing lifeboats. But here's another fatal flaw. There weren't enough lifeboats, only enough for about half the people on board. Why? Because lifeboats were seen as unnecessary on a safe ship. They were more for appearance than survival. At around 12:45 a.m., the first lifeboat was lowered. It wasn't full, not even close. Some boats left with barely half capacity. Why? Because people didn't want to leave. They didn't believe the ship was in danger. Crew members hesitated. Orders were unclear. Women and children first. But interpretation varied. In some cases, men were allowed. In others, they weren't. Meanwhile, third-class passengers struggled to reach the deck. Barriers, confusion, and language differences slowed them down. Time was running out, and the ship was slowly tilting. By 2 a.m., the situation had become undeniable. The bow was submerged. The stern was rising into the air. Lights flickered. Panic spread. People jumped into the freezing water. The temperature? Around -2 degrees Celsius, cold enough to kill within minutes. At 2:20 a.m., Titanic broke apart and disappeared beneath the ocean, in total darkness, in total silence. Over 1,500 people were left in the water. Most would die within 15-20 minutes, not from drowning, but from hypothermia. Only about 700 people survived, rescued by the RMS Carpathia, which arrived hours later, too late for most. The world was shocked. How could the unsinkable ship sink? Investigations revealed ignored ice warnings, excessive speed, lack of lifeboats, poor emergency planning. It wasn't just an accident. It was a failure of decisions, a failure of assumptions, a failure of human judgment. After the disaster, major changes were made. Lifeboats became mandatory for all passengers. 24-hour radio watch was required. The International Ice Patrol was established. Titanic changed maritime safety forever. But beyond policy, it left behind something deeper. A reminder that no matter how advanced we become, nature doesn't negotiate, and overconfidence can be deadly. The Titanic was more than a ship. It was a symbol of ambition, of luxury, of human belief in control. And in just a few hours, it became a symbol of tragedy. Over a century later, it still rests at the bottom of the Atlantic, silent, frozen in time, a graveyard of dreams, and a warning that even the greatest creations can fall. If you found this story powerful, make sure to subscribe for more historical documentaries. Because history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding the future.